Hi, this is Shane Starr, and today's video is a follow-up of a short video that celebrated my awards over the past year of work. I won a core award in the final quarter for fiscal year 26, and I won Community Relations Representative of the Year for my company at the end of the fiscal 2026 year. So the reason I'm tying that into a typology video is typology was instrumental in my coming from a couple of jobs where I felt like I was not literally chased out, but things didn't go so well. My personality wasn't working out with these places, and it didn't feel like a good fit. And oftentimes, how good someone is depends on just as much their environment as themselves. I mean, we see this with athletes all the time. You take a superstar in college and place the person with the wrong coach, and everyone's talking about how, yeah, that guy was a bust and this and that. And really, it's a matter of not fitting with the coach. So what this video is going to be about, and I'm going to try not to take too long, is to show how I weaved my understanding of typology into my work, highlighting my strengths, covering up my deficiencies, and working on my C student game to result in success beyond which I thought was possible. So let's start. There's really like there's 4 sections to this video. One is foundations, the other is a little bit of a typing blueprint or journey. The other, we're going to talk about strengths. The other, we're going to talk about weaknesses. And then finally, we're going to end with the C student functions. Now, for this whole video, I'm going to refrain from talking about specific letters or even specific functions. Those of you who know typology will be able to follow and know what I'm talking about. And people who aren't that into typology can still get something out of it by virtue of the descriptions that I'm giving. All right, so let's get started. So first and foremost, typology will not help you be successful if there are things out of balance. Long story short, if your life is a mess, typology is not really going to help you. You have to be at a certain baseline for any of this to take effect. You know, knowing whether you're an INTJ or INFJ or something like that, it's not going to assist you with your goals if you don't understand where you're at a comfortable baseline. What does this mean in specifics? It means getting enough sleep, eating at least reasonably well, exercising somewhat consistently, establishing some healthy routines, maintaining your finances, your relationships, taking care of your health issues, including the dentist, having reliable transportation, having a reliable job, being able to stay above water with regards to debt or, any kind of issues in your life that can cause unnecessary chaos. If any of those things are out of balance, it's going to affect your understanding of yourself, which will affect your understanding of your type, which will mess up your target areas for maximization and improvement and cover up. So in order to get your type right, you have to, somewhere below that, the foundations, you have to have yourself right. Now, this isn't a video about religion. I'm not going to try to push church on anyone here, but until I came back to the church and started going to church regularly and revitalized my religious life, I was in this situation. My emotions were not really stable like they should be. My relationships were out of whack. I was newly sober and without being in any kind of counseling or program. That can be a pretty difficult mountain to climb. Finances were sort of a mess. I needed time to establish who I really was before I could find out who I was after the fact. And for me, religion really gave me the why. It got my entire life together. And then once the why was fulfilled, typology became sort of the how, in terms of analyzing the specific parts that made up my personality that helped me make those improvements. So before you even get started, you have to do some things to get your life right without the aid of typology. You have to at least be at a neutral level. You don't have to be doing great, but you can't be a mess for any of the aforementioned reasons. Okay, so next thing, you have to type yourself honestly. And what does that mean? We all know the stories of, I don't mean to pick on INFJs or INTJs, but these two types, either one of these types, excluding the other one, outnumbers all the other 14 types combined easily. But these are supposed to be number one and maybe number two or three of the least common types. And I don't believe that, but even if we do believe it, then if we believe it, that means there's a lot of mistyped people. I think if you're honest and you've been in this field for a while, you're going to struggle with that yourself. I know I did, and I know I have, and I know I'm not the only one. I've had private conversations with plenty of well-known practitioners who have expressed struggles to me, like, I know I'm this type, but this kind of creeps in my head. I wonder about this. People I know go, I think you're that type, and it's always a work in progress, really. But for years, I was on a typology journey. What type am I? And the best way to approach this, and this is coming from experience that nobody will be able to sway me from, is that you have to create a collage of different areas of people and things where you are typed, and then look at places where there's the most overlap and come to a conclusion through a combination of sources. What does this look like? It looks like self-personality test. Yes, it's a bad way to type yourself if that's all you're doing, but they are a facet, they are an aspect of your type, so do that. Professional opinions. I know plenty of people who are afraid to get professional opinions because I don't know why. If you're looking for the truth, it shouldn't be scary, because a professional opinion, there's no law that says you have to agree with it, first of all. Second of all, if you get more than one, they're going to disagree, so you have to decide, who has your type right. And that can be difficult because you might respect one person more than the next person, but you think this person got your type better than the person you put at the top of your list. There's a lot of moving parts to that puzzle, and you can't ignore it though. Too many people I know just ignore that side of typing, and it's like, until you've had someone objectively take a look at you, don't tell me that you know your type without reference to those sources. So personality tests, professional opinions, studying typology yourself, knowing truthfully what is behind the theory, including the cognitive functions, whether you accept them 100% like most people do, whether you don't believe in them like practitioners of the big five are, or whether you're somewhere in between. Maybe people like me, for instance. I'm still more on the side of faith or belief, for lack of a better expression, but I'm not all in on, well, you don't know the cognitive functions. It's like, back up, it's a theory, it's not a fact, and you can type people without the cognitive functions. It's nice to use them. I'm going to use them here in this video, but you don't have to religiously adhere to them or you're out of the loop. So professional opinions, personality tests, studying typology, I would say comparing yourself with actual people. So many people I know just take one basic aspect of typology. Are you introverted, extroverted, and now people call themselves ambiverts, who are in between. Of course, on a spectrum of 1 to 100, there's going to be very few people 1 through 5 or 95 through 100. In a sense, that makes us all ambiverts, right? But in real life, people fall into categories. You can categorize people. We all do it. And people will generally fall into one side or the other. And most of the time, people get themselves wrong. I've seen very docile, quiet people say, well, I think I'm kind of both, and I've seen loudmouth people who can't shut up, and just you feel their presence in the room. It makes you want to shrink in a corner, and they say, oh yeah, I'm an introvert, and you can't take someone only at their word. Again, I think that's an important part of it. You can't discount it altogether, but you can't, that's the worst thing to do, and that's unfortunately what most people do. So you have to compare yourself to other people. That's when I first, I always had doubts about my original typings, and what really moved me beyond those original typings finally was just taking a common sense, real life look at myself compared to my 2 colleagues at work, my 2 managers at work, our people who we deal with in the nearby offices. Am I more extroverted or am I more introverted than this person, given all the things we know about extroversion and introversion? And really being able to put yourself on a scale, a comparative scale, on a spectrum, not just thinking isolated alone, what am I, but taking an honest look at your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, your siblings, your kids, if you have kids, your co-workers, your friends, your romantic partners. You'll see a pattern of, they're more quiet than me, they're to themselves, they're in their own world compared to me, or I am compared to them. You'll figure it out if you're being honest, and it takes ruthless honesty to do this. The best motivator is knowing that none of this is worth anything, and it's unhelpful if you get it wrong. Okay, next, you can use fictional characters too. I might add on an aside. Fictional characters help. You see, everyone types these people as this particular thing. Am I like that? Am I not? Am I sort of? I think one of the strongest indicators is honest, objective feedback from people who know you reasonably well. Now, I think using a girlfriend or boyfriend or spouse is difficult here because they're going to see, if we go by what our spouses or partners say, then every guy who exists is going to be an Enneagram 8 and a stubborn ESTJ probably, or if you are really introverted, they're going to type you as like a cellar dwelling INTP or something, without reference to anyone else. So you got to go beyond your spouse. They'll be as subjective as we are on ourselves. But again, you don't discount it completely. You take that information and add it to the body of knowledge. You have to examine decades of your own behavior. I suggest, something I did, and this is coming up to my last idea about typing yourself. You can write your own biography, upload it to ChatGPT or AI, and ask it to tell you honestly what type you are. That's what I did. And again, I didn't treat AI like it was God, but it added to the body of knowledge, to the professional opinions, to the personality tests, to my studies and understanding of MBTI and socionics and the Big Five and the Enneagram. How I measure myself on a spectrum of real people and fictional characters. All these things put together will give you a good idea of your type. And then from there, if you at the very worst, you should be down to 2 or 3 possibilities. And that's where you bring in cognitive functions to sort of try it out. Okay, so if I'm this type, this would be my role function. Does that fit? This would be my demonstrative function. Does that fit? This would be my, lead and creative. This would be my mobilizing function. Does that fit? And some things will fit, better than others, and you can knock things out that way. So now we're finally to the part of, once you've pretty much established your type, and maybe you establish it and you go to this next step that I'm talking about now, and then you decide, actually this isn't working out, you got to back up and try fill in a different type and see how those parts work. So what you want to do once you think you have your type is you want to build a career based on your strengths. Now that's what most people try to do anyway, and they ignore everything else, and then their strengths are overused and it gets them into trouble. I think what happened at my prior jobs is I wasn't using typology to help me. I did lead with my strengths, but I was in an environment where my strengths weren't what was needed. And I had more of, I would call, technical expertise and efficiency, and a very organizational way of thinking, structural way of thinking. And at my prior jobs, what was needed was more what the Big Five would call openness, openness to change, openness to different perspectives, and also the social factor that was hurting me. So if you're focused on structure and efficiency, and you're in an environment that prizes being open-minded and adaptability and really good socially, you're going to struggle, and vice versa. So let's engineer this backwards. I'm gonna show real quickly what my nomination for the award I eventually won looked like, and we will turn it. So what this award is about, I was nominated for Community Relations Representative of the Year, and what I did was make that move from being an important individual contributor to becoming more of an office leader. And what was my prize things? Those were my strengths that I really showcased. It was reliability, punctuality. Since I wasn't that good socially, I volunteered for overtime a lot and helped with different functions. I'll get more into that later. I was able to get a lot of 5-star Google and Yelp reviews. I helped train 2 new community relations representatives at my site, and I really helped with onboarding not just other teammates but managers as well. So once they came in, I was able to actually help train them at our property, and that made things work out. Okay, so I also won this one, but it doesn't have the description to it like the other one does. So how did I pull this off? I decided what are my main strengths, and again, I'm not going to use the letters, I'm not going to use the functions, but I led with structure, organization, reliability, punctuality, being very attentive to rules, policies, procedures. My dress was impeccable. I probably overdid it because everyone would always gently remind me, hey, you don't have to wear a tie. It's sort of like hinting to me to quit wearing a tie, and I like the tie. To me, it was like part of my badge, my uniform. And here and there I didn't wear one, but I like it, and so it makes me feel better, so I do it. But still, always in a suit, always in a black suit. I would change the shirt in pocket square. I'd always have my desk very nice. A good example, my desk at home. I have my computer, everything's lined up. Have my closet, everything's organized. It's all my shirts, my suits, my watches, my whole little black and white thing. There's another photo of my award. I do that to remind myself, sort of like affirmations every morning, just like they do at Notre Dame. Play like a champion today. I have my Notre Dame jerseys for my certificate that I earned, and I have my Yale degree. Getting prepared in an environment like this, that's clean and nice and organized, that reminds me of who I am and what I've done, it helps prepare me to be ready for all the chaos that the day is going to throw at me. People yelling at me because they lost their packages. People yelling at me because they got towed. People telling me that I've put billions of dollars in my pocket from raising their rents, even though I didn't see a cent of that. Being constantly, asked to help with troubleshooting our computer systems, our technology applications that we use, from opening doors to touring apartments, working with the maintenance team on service requests, working on moving people in, working on moving people out, and on top of all that, processing final account statements virtually by myself and overseeing the training of others who are learning to do the same things. In order to do that, you have to have those baseline things in order, and you do that through healthy routines at home, affirmations like I just showed you. You know, you start the day that way, dress professionally, remind yourself of your accomplishments, the good things you've done, have your workspace all nice and organized. That's what gave me my foundation to go from being chased out of my last main job to success beyond what I could ever imagine at this job. So preparation, being brilliant at the basics, perfecting the fundamentals, and really having things so organized that chaos doesn't rattle me, because underneath the chaos on the surface, I'm as cold as ice and as solid as a rock. And that is the beginning. Okay? My next strength that I really focused on to help me was my efficiency and my execution. I process office work quickly and efficiently and at a scale that is more broad and more correct in the way things are done than my teammates and others who've come before me combined. And that's a good thing. I'm not saying it to brag, I'm saying it as a matter of fact. And if you're good and efficient, you need to find a job that prizes those qualities. You know, efficiency won't help you if you're planning parties for people. You know, that it'll help a little bit, but not really like an office job, you know. So I always focus on being accurate first, complete, document everything, and be quick and fast at my work. I don't waste time. I don't take a lot of breaks. I don't take days off. I'm working an overtime day tomorrow. So really, my baseline for success became consistency and structure plus efficiency and execution. And those two got me sort of in the door, you know. I understood everything I need to do, and I was able to execute and get it done. Okay? So what about my weaknesses? What got me into trouble before, and how have I avoided it this time? I'm going to take these one at a time. I see we're already 28 minutes in. I want to not take too much more time. You can't deny your weakness. You can't strengthen a muscle that's not really there. But what you can do is engineer around it. The way you do this from a cognitive function standpoint is you take one or two things you're really poor at and go to the opposite attitude of that. If it's an extroverted function, take that same one introverted. If it's an introverted function, take that same one and turn it around extroverted. I'm not going to mention specifically, but again, those of you who know typology will be able to tell this right away. One of my long-standing weaknesses, and probably the main thing that hurt me at my job at Hollywood, was office and social dynamics. I was overly formal. I was overly blunt. I overdressed. It was just my thing. And whenever we would have work meetings or get-togethers, I would sit in a corner and be on my phone, or I would pretty much avoid small talk. Being not freshly sober anymore, but sober, I wasn't that into the whole social game that everyone else was playing. When we would like go bowling or something, I would just focus on winning the bowling match, and I would win, but at what cost? You know, people were saying, "Oh, dude, you're like a robot. Like everyone's having fun. You're just like straight on bowling the same way every time. You're not even like changing it around or anything." And in my mind, it's just like, hey, I went there to win and I won. You know, goal accomplished. missing the larger picture. We're supposed to be having fun and hanging out and getting to know each other outside of work better, and I was doing none of that. So what I did, I can't change who I am, but what I did do is I made a new strategy. I was never going to be the life of the party or anything like that, but I strategically started picking out one or two people to kind of have a nice one-on-one conversation with, and that helped me a lot. The other thing I did is I started helping. Being efficient and everything, office celebrations need someone to help set up, they need someone to throw things away, they need someone to put things up on the wall, they need someone to pass out the plates, they need someone to move the tables and chairs. And it's like that was my way of participating without having to like really talk to a lot of people. I would just talk one-on-one to like one or two people, or maybe talk to one person for a half hour, talk to another person for another half hour. And then I made it a practice, and I saw this on a video. I made myself go around the room 2 times. It could be 2 times in a row sometimes it'd be at the beginning and then another time at the end. But go around the room and wave hi, shake someone's hand. And I still do that to this day. I have like a little internal list. It's just like, okay, you went around once, go around one more time, and I have to do it or my task isn't complete. Other people have that naturally. I don't, but I did that, and the results I already showed you. I went from being disliked and isolated and virtually chased out of the job I had at Hollywood to being a star at a more elite company, just by virtue of that strategy alone, really. So I never did cover up that weakness. I'm still not the life of the party, but I know how to get by without looking overly awkward. Okay? So what's the next thing? I've been criticized at home and at work for being overly black and white. Not literally, even though my colors are black and white, but figuratively as well. Black and white morally, black and white on policy and procedure, and I never was good at seeing the gray area. I don't like gray area. I want it to be white or I want it to be black, and I don't like change. I don't like being shaken up. One of the things that they did when I could tell the boss didn't really want me at Hollywood anymore is she switched my desk. She switched my office space from one office to a different office, and she knew I wouldn't like that. And in the beginning, she protected my office space, and then it was like, oh, okay, this'll get rid of him. He'll hate this, I don't presume to know that's what she was thinking, but again, the results are that I was moved for no objective reason twice. Not just once, but twice. And then she made me switch my desk around in the office again. I mean, what? Isn't that weird? At least I think it's weird. And I never learned how to just go with things. And, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And at this job, I even struggled with that at this job at first. When I started with this company in 2024, I had to cover at some other places. I had to train at other places, and every time I was, it's embarrassing to say this, being a full-grown adult and everything, but I was scared. It's like, I don't know who these people are. I have to drive over here. Will I find somewhere to park? Where's the office? Will they like me? Will they think I'm weird? Will I be overdressed to them too? And are they going to think it's weird that my phone and everything matches? And a lot of it is social anxiety, given my OCD and stuff like that. And I mean, I've never been diagnosed, but I don't need to be. I know what it is. and it was very difficult for me. And then I would learn things at these other places, and it's like, well, we don't do it that way here. We do it similar, but this slightly different way, and that would just throw me off. Like, if I learned A is the right way to do this, and you're saying A/B, and then someone else says B is the right way, something's wrong. It should all be A, or it should all be B, or it should all be AB. It shouldn't, you know. I mean, when you back up and just use common sense, it's like, yeah, you're gonna, same company, same procedures, more or less. Everyone's gonna have their little different flavor of doing it, but it locked in my black and white way of thinking. It would throw me off. So I really had to work on that one, and that might be a little bit of a struggle to this day. So how do I figure that out? Remember what I said. If you know the cognitive functions, you flip it around to it's introverted. You know, this is the unknown, different options, potential, ideas, brainstorming. I don't like any of that stuff, really. I'm not good at it. I need someone to help me with that kind of stuff. And when they do, I can go with it. So what motivated me, I couldn't find the motivation in and of itself, but I switched that around to the focused version of those things, which is thinking of time, thinking of where do I want to be in a week, in a month, in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years, and learning to be adaptable and flexible and open to different ideas is going to get me where I want to go. And again, the results speak for themselves. I went from struggling, moving into a new company, to the highest honor I could win at my position through these techniques that I'm sharing here. Now, and I did it through that turnaround, what I'm telling you now. I switched what I perceived to be that functional weakness and put it to its different introverted attitude, and then I used that as like the catalyst or the glue that kept these things together, you know, and it really kept the social part together too for me, because it's just like, do I really got to go around the room twice? I already went once. This is stupid. Why am I making myself do this? And it's like, hey, where do you want to be in 5 years? If no one knows you, no one can vote for you, you know, for an award or for a promotion or anything else. So do it for your future self. Your future self will thank you for it. And so that's how I did it. And that's how I covered up those weak functions. And I did it with a function that I would kind of give myself a C in. It's not my worst thing, but it's not my best thing either. It's kind of like doing the dishes, you know, it's work. I have to really think hard and do it. But when I think of that long game, I think of time, I think of, you know, what does this physical action carry with it? What does it symbolize? What does it mean for the greater meaning of things around me? Then that would kick me into gear, and I could do those little things that got me to where I needed to be and got me to where I wanted to go. Okay, so coming full circle in this whole video that we're about to end, you have to have a baseline for your life. Get your life together, at least in part, before you try to really build. You don't want to build a castle in the sand and have it crumble to the ground. You have to have a solid foundation. Get your life together. Get your finances, your relationships, have a job. You can't improve at a job if you don't have one to improve. You know, have your baseline things in order first. Then get your type right through a combination of everything. Don't leave anything out. Don't leave any stone unturned. Don't listen to any one person. None of us are God. We're all a work in progress. I'm almost embarrassed. What helped me the most figure out my type to just solidity, no one can change my mind about it, was really AI. And, you know, since then, 3 or 4 people who I genuinely respect have typed to me the same as I type myself, so I'm good now. You know, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes some missteps. Be open to it and go with it. Once you get it right, then you can get to work on, here's my good parts, maximize those. Here's my bad parts, I got to cover those up. How do I cover them up? I do it by flipping that bad function around, identify it as a function, flip it around. Your path and journey may look very different from mine. It might look sort of like mine, sort of not, or it might be similar to mine. Depending on your type, it's going to look completely different for you. And maybe I'll have some videos that talk about that. And then it's always a work in progress. Adapt and adjust. You're never finished. You know, my next step now that I've gone as far as I can go here, I'll have to use that cash value I've earned to buy into the next step up. And it's, you know, before I didn't want to take a step up, but it's time now. So I'll have to check into that. And now I have the pedigree to give me confidence and give others confidence in me to move forward. And if you've noticed, I've successfully stayed away from my 4 letters. I've not really mentioned any cognitive functions explicitly. It's not about the 4 letters. It's not even about the cognitive functions. It's about maximizing what you're good at, covering up what you're bad at, and making up for it. And then using what you are a C student in and build up with that. And then that will get you to your A game, and that will bring you the success that you desire. That's all I have for today. I'll be coming back soon with some more type-specific videos. And until then, peace out.